Our topic today for this one is the scene that broke me, which is authors reading from scenes that were very difficult to write for various reasons. Um, so to start as an opening question, I would like to know what you have in the background when you write. Do you need complete silence? Do you like music? Do you like the TV? Do you write in cafes? What's going on in the background as you write? And we'll start with Kim.
Oh gosh, I can't listen to music anymore. It used to be music. And so pretty quiet, except for my dogs are running in and out of the house and my kids are probably doing something, but I like it quiet.
Okay, cool. Sam?
Similar. I don't like noise. I'm easily distracted by music with lyrics or TV. I always dream of being a writer who can sit in a cafe and, type a story out. It sounds very idyllic, but I'm just not that person, I have learned. And so I have to lock myself in my office and have pretty near silence in order to at least write the first draft.
Yeah, a room of one's own.
Mhm.
Julia, how about you?
I usually like it quiet. Once in a while, I'll have the TV on the news station and put it on mute if I'm really, want something going. But that's it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think often the news is better on mute. That's what I've
That's
heard.
true.
And Joy, how about you?
I have the TV on. I've tried music, including like meditative music and stuff that's designed for writing. I can't do music. I can't do songs, but the TV, I actually have to have the TV on.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, if I get stuck a little bit on something and I watch TV for, just a few minutes, I can usually get back to the writing with no problem.
Yeah. Is there like a specific show or a specific kind of TV? But it
No,
doesn't
I have
matter.
I have YouTube on a lot and I watch like gardening channels and artists and stuff like that.
Cool. All right. Awesome. So let's begin our readings, and we're going to start with Joy.
Okay, I'm reading from My Boyfriend's Wife. It is a romance. I've got 10 books with bold strokes, and they're all romances. So this part that I'm reading, the two main characters are Tara and Megan. And Megan finds out that her boyfriend, Mike, is actually married to Tara when Tara calls her in the middle of the night. And she agrees to help Tara get money from a prenup when Tara decides to get a divorce. And as they're doing that, the women, of course, get close. And then suddenly Tara stops talking to Megan without any explanation. So we're going to start in Megan's point of view, and then we're going to go to Tara. Megan did her best to keep herself busy and to keep her thoughts from settling on Tara. She was the last person Megan wanted to think about. Her efforts were only semi-successful. She seemed to walk through Megan's mind on a regular basis. The hurt and fear of losing her boiled up every time she made an appearance. The dream she had of kissing Tara left her aroused when she woke up and scared when she realized she might never talk to her again. She was angry at herself for getting her hopes up that she and Tara had a future together. How stupid can I be? She asked Dozer, her cat. Don't bother answering that. The answer is very. She poured fresh food into his bowl and refilled his water dish. I'm heading to Jill's. Don't be crazy while I'm gone. She thought back to her conversation with Tara about being crazy. There I go again, thinking about her. A quick stop at the bakery around the corner for a box of cookies and another stop at the liquor store for a bottle of vodka, and she pointed her car in the direction of her sister's house. It was Todd's bowling night, and Harper, her niece, would be down for the evening. I've got the goodies, she said when Jill answered the door, cookies and vodka. Good, I've got orange juice and cranberry. Jill hung her coat up in the closet. If you have more than 2 drinks, you're spending the night in the guest room. I've already put out a pair of sweatpants and a t-shirt for you to sleep in. How do you know how much I'm going to drink? In the kitchen, Jill retrieved 2 glasses and opened the refrigerator. Because I know you, and from the sound of your voice on the phone, you need an evening of talking and drinking. She looked at Megan, and maybe some crying. I'm not crying, you're crying. Lame. Do you want orange juice or cranberry? Let's live dangerously. Both. No, Jill said, that's gross. You're getting orange. I have more of that. I'm glad that's settled. Jill made them both a drink and headed towards the living room. Bring the box of cookies. They settled down across from each other. Talk to me, Jill said. What do you want to talk about? How's Harper? She's fine. How are you? Megan shook her head. I've been dumped. She took a healthy swig of her drink. It was stronger than she would have made, but she wasn't about to complain. Dumped? By who? I didn't know you were seeing anyone since Mike. Tara dumped me. Another swig and a cookie chaser to kill some of the taste of the alcohol. I'm confused. I know you liked her, but she paused. Did she stop talking to you? You helped her and now she doesn't need you? Not exactly. Her lawyer told her to stop seeing me or even talking to me. Come on, Jill said. This is like pulling teeth. Stop giving me bits and pieces and tell me the whole story. Megan filled her in on everything that had happened. She managed to keep the tears at bay until she got to the end. So she didn't tell me for 3 days what was going on. That hurts. And not seeing her hurts even more. Jill grabbed the box of tissues next to her and tossed them to Megan. Of course it does. I'm doing my best to get her out of my head. And how's that going? Not great. The bigger problem is trying to get her out of my heart. I really care for her, Jill. Even now? Megan wiped her eyes. Yes, that's how deeply she's entrenched there. I had such high hopes. And? And what? Megan took another sip of her drink and realized she'd almost finished it. Do you still have high hopes? How can I? She won't even talk to me. Can't. She can't talk to you. There's a difference, Jill said. Megan wasn't ready to hear logic. She wanted to be mad, at least for a little while longer. Earth to Megan, are you listening to me? I need another drink. Megan left Jill and her opinions, no matter how much sense they made, in the living room while she made herself another screwdriver. She returned to find Jill had disappeared, much like Tara did. Except Jill, she knew, would return. She wasn't so sure about Tara. She wasn't sure she wanted her to come back. Who was she kidding? Of course she wanted her to. Did you make me another one? Jill asked when she returned. You didn't ask me to. Megan started to get up, but Jill stopped her. I'll get it. She grabbed a glass and headed towards the kitchen. Alone again, naturally. Isn't there a song like that? She turned her attention in the direction Jill had headed and yelled, Isn't there a song about being alone? Jill stuck her head out through the kitchen doorway long enough to put her finger to her lips. Oh, Megan whispered, Harper's sleeping, sorry. Or is it alone again unnaturally? She sipped her drink. No, that doesn't make sense. What doesn't make sense? And don't yell when the baby's sleeping. I couldn't understand what you were saying anyway. I was trying to figure out the lyrics to a song about being alone. You aren't alone. You know that. You've got me and Dad, Victoria, your producer friend, what's your name, and a handful of other friends that you've probably been neglecting. She was right about that one. She hadn't felt too social lately. And before lately, she only wanted to hang out with Tara. There she was again, occupying the space in Megan's mind. She had a lot of nerve showing up there so often. And you have Dozer, don't forget about him. Never. I would never forget about him. He's my buddy, my very destructive buddy. Turns out Tara was a destructive buddy. Tara was a destructive buddy too. Look at how easily she put a big dent in Megan's heart. All right, now we're flipping to where Tara is, and she's visiting with her friend. I don't know, Tara said to Corey. I haven't heard from Jackson yet. He presented Michael's lawyers with the new figures, and as far as I know, they haven't gotten back to him. Corey poured wine into 2 glasses and handed one to Tara. Let's go sit in the family room. I started a fire in the fireplace. It's exactly what we need on this frigid night. Good friends, good wine, and a warm fire. Tara settled on the couch and pulled her feet up under her. Corey was right. This is what she needed. She was glad it was just the two of them. Corey set the bottle of wine on the end table and settled next to Tara. No matter what happens, you're going to get through this. I know, but the process is so hard. Fighting over money, it's not something I ever thought I would do, but I feel like I have to, for my sister Anna and for Brandon. So worst case scenario, you get enough money to start over and Brandon has to go back to public school. Is that the end of the world? She didn't wait for Tara to respond. I mean, he'll be in high school next year. It's a whole different world than middle school. Tara hadn't thought of that. Anna said not to worry about it, but I do. You need to stop, Corey said. You need to take care of yourself now. Stop worrying about everyone else. Easier said than done. I've worried about Anna her whole life. It's hard to shut it off. She's a grown woman with a kid of her own. I know she's had hard times losing her husband and raising a kid on the spectrum alone, but she can handle it. Give her some credit. Tara was quiet while she absorbed what Corey had said. I seem to be messing things up lately. She took a sip of her wine. What does that mean? Brandon might have to leave his private school because of me. Megan probably hates me because of me. Now, what does that mean? The Megan part. Jackson told me to cut off all communication with her, and I did. Only I waited 3 days before I told her. And why would that make her hate you? She asked. Because I ignored her phone calls and texts during those 3 days. She ended up calling Jackson because she was worried about me. And I care about her so much. I shouldn't have waited to tell her. I had no idea what to say or how to say it. I knew it would hurt her. I ended up hurting her even more by not talking to her sooner. As soon as Jackson told me, I'm so stupid. How could I have done that? First of all, you aren't stupid. Stop saying that. And if you didn't know what to tell her, you didn't know. I can understand needing time to figure it out. Yeah, well, Megan obviously didn't feel that way. Have you talked to her since? Tara put up her hand and shook her head. I've hardly eaten anything in the past. She had hardly eaten anything in the past week, and what she did eat didn't sit well in her stomach. No, I'm following Jackson's orders. So he ordered you to do it? Cut her off totally? Tara thought about it for a few moments. I don't think legally he can order me to do anything. He told me that's what I should do, and I did it. It's not like I wanted to. I didn't. It hurt her heart to do it. Why can't you talk to her? Seems to me the damage is already done. He said we shouldn't give them more ammunition. Basically, I'm assuming he knows what he's doing, although I'm not sure what I'm doing. I miss her, Corey. I know we haven't known each other that long, and we met under, well, let's call it weird circumstances. But she's come up to mean a lot to me. Weird circumstances, to say the least. What are you going to do? I'm going to do what Jackson said, as much as it sucks. Was there any other way to do this? She didn't think so. That's it.
Ah, unrequited love. What are you gonna do?
I don't know. I'll just suffer.
You're gonna write a romance novel about it where
That's
hopefully
right.
together in the end. Um, awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Next up, we have Julia Underwood. There we go. Hello.
Hi there.
Please go ahead and introduce yourself and your book whenever you're ready.
I'm Julia Underwood, and I had 2 books published this past year. Set in 2073, Talon and the Songbird is a speculative fiction romance with an intrigue thriller subplot. And then Protection in Paradise is a contemporary romance and also has an overlap into the intrigue and thriller genre. I'd like to offer a bit of context before I read a scene from Protection in Paradise. With her life in a rut, Shay Hayden decided to move back to Paradise Pines as the new librarian, with the hope of dealing with her role in the death of her stepfather after a rookie cop shot him when she'd yelled gun during a holdup when she was 5. Her ex-wife was a cop. Her pain has been caused by cops, and Shay can't stand them. Eve McGuire's police chief job is her sole focus because after breaking up with her cheating girlfriend a year ago, she's vowed to avoid all relationships. An unsolved library arson case is threatening her job, and she's upset the new librarian has been assigned one of the coveted police station offices. Eve often visits her aunt in the nursing home in the Bay Area. Shay and Eve initially meet in the Bay Area at the Lady Luck Bar just before Shay moves to Paradise Pines. Challenges with this scene included finding a scene that fit with both characters' circumstances and allowed them to remain strangers, as well as establishing their initial mutual attraction before they meet in the light of day and their issues surface in Paradise Pines. This attraction evolves into a much deeper connection that pulls them toward each other at the same time that it creates internal conflict when Shay witnesses another arson, and the only practical solution to protect her is to move her in with Eve. And I debated point of view and finally settled on Eve's. Eve sat on a bar stool in this place named Lady Luck and ordered an old-fashioned. She hadn't had one in years, and the mix of bourbon, bitters, sugar, and a twist of citrus sounded good tonight. The lighting was low, and the digital jukebox music added a background auditory component that overlaid and leveled out the bursts of congenial patron commotion. This was a working person's place. As Eve sat there sipping her drink and surveying the tables off to her left, someone took the bar stool on her right. She'd been happy sitting here alone, and she hoped the person had no intention of engaging her. I'll have whatever she's having, the brunette told the bartender in a sultry voice with the same hint of teasing that the smile she offered to Eve conveyed. That teasing traveled right to where Eve made contact with the bar stool. Eve shifted a bit and then pinged the side of the glass with her pointer finger. What if I'm having balsamic vinegar and Kool-Aid? The blue-eyed stranger raised her eyebrows. Was fairly certain the room full of guys who were looking at her bar companion wouldn't argue with their assessment of striking, but she had the feeling that the woman wasn't interested in them. If Eve had to describe her, she would have gone for the facts with a bit of elaboration. Long and full-bodied, her brown hair carried caramel highlights that only enhanced her appearance. Her lush lips were the centerpiece of enticing feminine features, or maybe it was those alluring laughing eyes. She was a little younger than Eve's 47 years, but it was the aura of vitality that stoked an uncharacteristic gallop in Eve's heart rate. How could she begin to easily define that? She hadn't personally connected with the woman in the years since the breakup with Pauline, and Eve had no plans to do so tonight. She could certainly pay attention, though, as part of her professional training. Vinegar and Kool-Aid? Then I guess I misjudged you, and I'm not in for the experience I was hoping for. Those azure eyes danced as they gazed at Eve. Eve took another sip, buying a moment to collect herself. This woman was flirting with her, and she was completely out of practice. That was a good thing, but she hadn't come here to flirt with anyone. There was no place in Eve's life for this, a life that was back in Paradise Pines. But maybe being 3 hours away from home gave her the latitude to let her guard down for a few minutes. The experience you were hoping for. Are we talking about the drink or something else? Eve asks. I'm a bit rusty. You take me for someone who picks up women in bars, the woman replied with that same flirtatious tease infiltrating her tone. Eve decided to dodge the question by approaching the subject in a different way. She was having a good time. She might even try dusting off her own flirting skills in this anonymous watering hole, but she had no intention of letting things get out of control. It's an old-fashioned, not a glass of love potion for two, not a tie me to the bedpost. As soon as the words were out of her mouth, Eve blinked and shook her head. Obviously, she'd been alone too long, and this alluring woman ignited an uncharacteristic cheeky boldness. It was a good thing she'd never see her again. Good to know for future reference. The woman's mirth tugged at the corners of her mouth. The bartender placed a drink identical to Eve's in front of the stranger. She took a long swallow and nodded. Future reference, huh? Eve said. I'm probably over my limit with one drink. Only one drink, and you chose the old-fashioned? I'm a researcher at heart. So many choices. Cupid's kiss, sex on my birthday, part-time lover, Eve's drinking partner replied. Eve choked as she tried to contain her laughter, and these feelings she wasn't prepared to experience. Whoa! I just came in to unwind after a tough day. As for sex on my birthday, it's not my birthday. I was just listing off drinks alternatives I'd read about. I'm not a big drinker myself. I'm happy just sitting here chatting with you. Sorry, Eve said. Let me repeat. I'm rusty at this. And she wasn't ready for this. She'd spent a year building a life that had no room for another woman, but tell that to her renegade hormones because that was all this was. They, they sat in a comfortable silence, sipping their drinks. Eve noticed the woman had a tiny scar just above her left eyebrow that offered her captivating face a touch of character that suggested she had a past. And those small creases next to her mouth and eyes mapped out traces of what would undoubtedly prove to be more prolonged laugh lines. Her face, a life story mixed with perfection. She was so compelling, Eve thought, before she chastised herself. Eve wouldn't let her mind go there, not to an anonymous physical encounter with a stranger. She'd have to deal with the inevitable emotions that would be churned up. She'd worked too hard to avoid those this past year. Her drinking partner finally broke the comfortable silence. So tell me about your tough day, the one that's not your birthday. It wasn't that terrible. Just headed to visit someone who I was but I was waylaid and had to stay over until tomorrow. And you, just unwinding? The woman shook her head. I'm in the process of moving, packed all day and decided to get out for a bit, but I'm about ready to call it a night. Me too, Eve took her last swallow. It was time to head out and put a halt to this interaction and her unwelcome thoughts. They headed toward the door, and as they entered the parking lot, Eve turned and gave the stranger a long last look that Eve knew communicated her hunger because she couldn't suppress it. Eve tried to focus on maintaining control, protecting her heart. Not that this stranger had anything to do with her heart. The woman leaned in and waited for the objection that Eve could not bring herself to make, then brushed her lips across Eve's. Eve let the contact linger. She didn't want to end that soft and warm caress of connection, that ember of suppressed physical longing that could so easily flare to wanton flame. The rightness surprised Eve because she didn't kiss strangers. Then that rightness ruptured Eve's resolve as she opened to the kiss and leaned into the brunette. She pressed into the curves of this beautiful woman, and their bodies melded in a perfect pairing. It didn't feel like a taking or a giving. Eve's mouth met hers in a sharing, a slow, deep exploration, tangling tongues, breathing the same air, exploring a mutual attraction. Eve's heart pounded out a rapid drumbeat to the desire that drove their physical communion. Her body craved this stranger. The door opened and the fellowship from the interior drifted out. Every alarm sounded in Eve's head as she lectured herself that she needed to care for somebody if they were going to be intimate. But caring left her vulnerable, and she'd been unwilling to risk that. She hadn't met anyone who'd made her want to figure out what would work for her now. Eve moaned and then pulled back before she invited the woman to her 4.2 rated hotel room for 10.0 sex. Good night. It's nice meeting you. Nice to meet you too, old-fashioned. There was no mistaking the amusement that infiltrated the stranger's husky voice. Not love potion for two, not tie me to the bedpost. Then she added, for future reference. Those dancing blue eyes poked at memories of things Eve didn't want to desire, at memories of things she didn't want to miss. I rather doubt it, but just in case, remember the drink called date night? It's more my speed. Then Eve turned to leave while she still could, but not before letting herself throw back over her shoulder. But I do carry handcuffs.
Oh my, with the double entendres in there. I really like that line. It's not giving or taking, but sharing. That was really a very nice line. Thank you, Julia.
Mhm.
Alrighty, next up we have Kimberly Cooper Griffin.
Okay, cool. I'm Kimberly Cooper Griffin, and my book, I Hate You Now, Kiss Me, came out just a few days ago. And I'm going to read the scene that is kind of a pivotal point in the two characters' lives. They were best friends until fifth grade. And then Lena, one of the characters, Lena and Andy, Lena broke off their friendship and never told Andy why. And so they're now adults. It's 12 years since the last time they've seen each other. And they're kind of trying tepidly to try to get their friendship back online now that they're adults and they can get through it. I cried so much while I was writing the first draft of this. It just tore up my heart that this person is very strong and capable and seen by people as this wonderful person put together, that she's been holding on to secrets all her life. And the thing that she's worried about most is what she's done to Andy. And it just broke my heart to think about her going through all of this and still holding all of it and just thinking about what she's done to Andy and that kind of friendship and how close they were. And I think I've known a lot of people like that. So anyhow, they're at a place where they've been hanging out. They've actually reunited and they've actually become lovers. And they're hanging out in Andy's room, and Lena starts to tell her why she broke up their friendship for the first time. Hey, we all have our demons, Lena, but I don't want you to blame yourself for any of it. You had reasons. We're okay. Andy wrapped both arms around her. We'll agree to disagree. Obviously, you figured out my parents weren't loving, caring, engaged. She took a deep breath. Like other parents, they didn't love me, talk to me, notice me. The old fear of Andy's knowing how fucked up she was had receded, but the pain and shame hadn't. So far, Andy hadn't been horrified. Lena rolled to her back, and she pulled their clasped hands onto her chest and imagined Andy's strength flowing into her. My mom's a fucking bitch, she said. It felt good to say it, finally acknowledging the abscessed pocket of anger her mother had put into her heart. Who knew not feeling all the pressure of hiding it would make her want to talk about it? Andy, patient and unrelentingly supportive, squeezed her hand, giving Lena time. Lena wasn't sure how to express something she had never talked about, except in fragments with short-lived therapists. She rolled to face Andy, who mirrored her pose. Lena pulled Andy's arm around her, and it was comforting and safe and intimate. She'd always considered herself a non-cuddler. She'd never just had a person in her bed long enough to relax, let alone cuddle with. With Andy, it felt natural. Do you want to talk about it? Andy's expression displayed nothing but care and curiosity. Lena fought the instant feeling of not deserving it. Andy was just being nice. She shouldn't take up Andy's time, rejection, all of that shit. Andy gently ran her fingers down the side of Lena's face. Lena couldn't look away from her gentle brown eyes. She'd rather disappear into them than wallow in the childhood pain she should have discarded years ago. You don't have to, Andy said. Christ, was she about to cry again? And why was it so hard? She just acknowledged that talking about this wasn't as scary as it once was. Andy pushed Lena's hair back and traced the outside ridges of her ear. It's okay, we can just hang out. Lena took in a shaky breath. My mom's a bitch. She held her breath for a moment. When she saw us leave for the coffee shop yesterday, it sent her off. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. She told me I shouldn't hang out with you, that people would think things. If I couldn't, she'd come talk to you. She's aware we're adults, right? And Andy seemed genuinely curious, not scared, not defensive. Scared and defensive were Lena's things. Tell her she can talk to me. It won't change anything. Andy looked confident, not judgy or critical, not even angry. She's unhinged. I'm 30 years old and I'm still reacting to every word she says, every look she gives me, every look and word she doesn't. She's capable of anything, Andy. She doesn't care about me. She doesn't even see me unless she needs something, like a can of artichoke hearts or an emotional punching bag. When she does, I want to hide. It's stupid. And when she says she'll talk to my friends, she couldn't finish. What could she say? Andy asked. It's not what she would say, but what people would know when she does. Know what? Andy's voice was gentle. Lena squeezed her eyes shut, not wanting to be seen. It's Andy, she reminded herself. I don't know. Why did she lie? Because saying it out loud was different than thinking it. Saying things planted them in people's minds. Andy said she knew the truth, but what if the truth was that her mother had been right all along? Is it because you never came out to her? Andy asked. Lena laughed for the first time in a while. Would this emotional roller coaster ever stop? That's the least of my worries. I saw how she was all over you when you were sleeping. I used to have nightmares about her going off in front of you. But when she said she would do it to you, I panicked. Even as an adult, all she has to do is look at me like she did today. I couldn't bear it if she did it to you. Today? And you were worried about me? Andy held her, and Lena melted into it. No wonder you were upset earlier. It was the last thing I ever wanted you to know. Lena should have been supporting Andy. She'd acted heartless, bullied, and made her life miserable. But Andy held her closer. Andy gently placed her fingers under Lena's chin, guiding Lena to look at her before kissing her and wiping away her tears. It was probably the most inappropriate of times, but Lena wanted her so badly. Her inner voice asked if it was really desire or her body's stress response subconsciously trying to distract her. Probably both. Either way, she wanted her. She rolled onto her back to clear her head. She held Andy's hand, pulling it to her chest, needing the physical connection. Nothing she could tell me could change what I know about you. Nothing, Andy said. God, so much time wasted. But it's like her eyes paralyze you. You can't think. All you can do is try not to set her off or make it worse. Felt stupid for admitting to it. Andy's brow was furrowed like so many times in their past when Lena caught her watching her from a distance, as if Andy was trying to predict the next move. What sets her off? Asked Andy. Andy read her better than anyone she knew. She didn't have to answer. Andy would never force her. But Andy wasn't going to walk away when her ugly showed either. I have no idea most of the time. She's usually already mad when she comes into my room, probably because she has no one else to take it out on. She tells me how I ruin everything, wishes I didn't exist, how unlovable I am. I push my dad away. That's the biggest crime, at least the one she falls to the most. It's embarrassing to hear myself say all that. I know she's just trying to hurt me. I tell myself I should be numb to it by now, but I'm not. Today I just stood there. She had a hard time watching the parade of expressions that washed across Andy's face. Those things she listed, Andy said, she's listing her own faults, you know. They aren't yours. You make things better. You're a bright star in this universe. You're an amazing human, Lena. You aren't any of those things your mother says. Lena wanted to believe she was the person Andy thought she was. But Andy, I am. No, Andy said. Believe me, I wish I was. Most of the time I think I am, but I ruined us. I worry I might do it again. I don't want to, but I still worry. Maybe I'm subconsciously doing it now by telling you all of this. She paused, unable to get a full breath. She shook like she was cold, but she wasn't. I can't maintain friendships, and don't get me started on dating. I've run from every job I've ever had, any woman who wanted more than sex. God, had she really said that? My mother wishes I didn't exist. It's true, she does. My dad might have been different at one time, but he avoids me now. At best, I'm a reminder of all the things they couldn't have, which makes me unlovable. They don't love me. Why did her voice have to crack right then? And was she going to cry? Fuck. I pushed my dad away. I did. I told him I hated him, and he stopped coming home. I go years without talking to him. I'm all the things she says I am. What happens when you eventually see it? I mean, the things I did to you. I didn't want to hurt you, so I did it instead. I pushed you away. I made your life miserable for years. My mother was at least partially right. She accused me of doing things she did, but I did some of them too. I'm just like her. Maybe I don't corner little kids and traumatize them, but I inflict my trauma on other people. So tell me, how am I any different? But Lena shook her head. She had to say it all. She probably wouldn't be able to later. Even worse, I told myself I was protecting you when I was protecting myself. Lena wanted to throw up. Her words get into my head. I try to fight them, but sometimes I can't hold them back. You were just a kid, Lena. Andy sounded so earnest. She's the one to blame. I know. What she does is abusive and wrong. I might have been 10, but I knew what I was doing, Andy. Her entire body turned rigid in anticipation of Andy withdrawing. Do you think you'd do the same thing now? Andy asked. Lena searched Andy's eyes, looking for the recrimination. I don't have the strength to push you away. I'm telling you who I really am because I'm a coward. You'll see I don't deserve you. You'll do it to me. I mean this in the nicest of ways, Lena, but you need to do something about that rectal cranial inversion problem of yours. What? Lena asked. Andy sat up, so Lena did too. You don't deserve someone like me? Isn't that for me to decide? I didn't leave when we were at our worst. Why would I do it now? Andy sounded angry. Lena hadn't heard that since around junior year. And I'll remind you again, you were 10 years old, for fuck's sake. 10. Her eyes were intense and dark, and Lena was a little intimidated. But no, Andy shook her head insistently. You don't get to tell me we went through everything for no reason. Andy's eyes glimmered with tears that didn't fall. Like you said, she's unhinged. She huffed, the action so like her younger self. Lena's chest ached. I wish I'd known, Andy said, the last almost to herself. That's it.
Well, okay, just rip my heart out of my chest. It's fine. I'll live.
Now you know how I felt.
Right. You also get points for rectal cranial inversion problem. It took
Thank
me a
you.
minute to like get that, but that's a really good way
Thank you.
to describe it. It's a great reading. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have Sam Ledel.
Hello.
Please go ahead, introduce yourself whenever you're ready.
I'm Sam Ledel, and first I just want to say I really enjoyed all the readings today. They've all been really great. So for today, I will be reading from Discovering Gold, hopefully with the glare, y'all can see that awesome cover. It is my latest historical romance. The story takes place in a small mining town set in the Colorado Rockies in the 1920s. The romance follows a rowdy cowgirl trying to outrun her past and a guarded single mother. I'd never written a main character, I should say, who was a mother. So that in itself was a challenge for me. I'm not a parent, so I wanted to make sure that I was doing my best to convey the sense of unending love and support and often the fierce protective nature that can accompany motherhood. My reading today is going to be between the single mother, Eleanor Perry, and her young son, Peter, who struggles with asthma. In the 20s, asthma was understood as an inflammation of the airways. However, treatments were still quite varied. There was, of course, the asthma cigarettes, but a lot of times treatments included things like what was called Mormon tea or histamine pills that were actually later outlawed in the United States. So this passage is from Eleanor's perspective. Have a good day, Eleanor called as Peter started up the hill to the schoolhouse. She'd gotten him to agree to go with the reminder that this was the final week before summer vacation. She watched him greet another boy around his age. The two began a quick game of chase. She smiled as a trio of mothers passed, each dropping off their respective children. Eleanor tried to recall their names. All three were dressed fashionably, and she wondered if they'd gotten their clothing from out of town. Each woman eyed her curiously. Giving up on the names of those women, she was turning to go when the schoolmarm, Mrs. Shern, called, "Mrs. Perry!" Eleanor spun around to find Mrs. Shern waving frantically. Her chest sank at the sight of Peter on his knees, his hand on his chest. Oh, God. She sprinted, ignoring the wide-eyed mothers pulling her children aside. Mrs. Shern, a middle-aged woman with small eyes, pushed back her frizzy blonde hair as she said, "I don't know what happened. He was running with young Stewart, then dropped to the ground just like that." A high whistle came with each labored breath Peter took. His wide, frenzied gaze found hers. "It's his asthma." The look of confusion from Mrs. Shern wasn't encouraging, so she added, "Please, he needs room." "Of course." Mrs. Shern, looking relieved to have received an instruction, beckoned. "Children, please, follow me." She pushed those still outside back, then turned and kept the ones crowding the schoolhouse door inside. Eleanor sank to her knees in front of Peter. "I'm right here, darling." She put her hand over his. Guiding him, she made circles over his chest. "Keep breathing." Tears filled his eyes. "It's hard." "I know." She kept the motion on his chest, then took a breath. "Breathe with me." She brought his other hand to her sternum. "Match me, darling." It took one of the longest minutes of Eleanor's life for Peter's breathing to fall in line with hers. Mercifully, the whistling subsided, along with the dread in his gaze. "All right?" she asked. He nodded, and she couldn't help smiling as she pulled him into an embrace. "You're all right, my brave boy." The tittering of young children, like inquisitive mice, surrounded them. From the doorway, Mrs. Shern said, "Mrs. Perry, I think it's best Peter return home for the day." Eleanor wiped her face and stood. "He's fine now. These episodes happen now and then." The last teacher, Mrs. Harper, understood. Unfortunately, Mrs. Shern only seemed offended at the mention of last year's teacher, who left for some place called Seaside, California. Eleanor straightened at the stern look on her face. She also caught the fragment of fear in Mrs. Shern's eyes. She recognized that look, the look of not understanding what had just transpired, and sadly, the unwillingness to try. "Take him away," Eleanor could imagine her saying. "Take him away so he's not our problem." Eleanor helped Peter to stand, noting the flush in his cheeks as he caught classmates watching through the window. Her instinct to berate them all was barely overcome by the need to shield Peter from such judging eyes. "Very well," she managed to say before leading him away. At home, Eleanor helped Peter to bed for precautionary rest. After preparing his tea, she took a moment outside his room at the top of the stairs. She inhaled, anxiety pooling in her chest. It made its way to her hand at her side. Eventually, she couldn't resist the need to count the lines in the planked ceiling. The tea in her left hand, her right forefinger and thumb found one another. 1, 2, 3. After reaching 20, she managed to take another breath and forced herself to move on. From his bed, Peter glared at the cup. "I hate this. I know it's not good without the sugar, but the doctor says no. I hate this," he said, his small fist banging on his chest. The gesture startled her, and she set the tea on the side table, quickly grabbing his fist before he could hit himself again. "Darling, stop." His eyes were so full of anger, Eleanor wanted to cry out. His bottom lip quivered as he asked, "Why am I like this?" Eleanor bit her cheek to keep from crying. She swallowed, running a hand down his arm when she was sure he wasn't going to hit himself again. She took a breath and sat next to him. "I don't know." He seemed to be fighting tears before he turned his back and faced the wall. "Peter, I don't want to go back. Back to school? It's the final week. They hate me." "No, they don't hate you. They always stare at me. Last year, I couldn't breathe after a game of hopscotch. Stewart and everyone said I was a guppy out of water." Eleanor's blood raged at their cruelty. "Peter, I hate them." She inhaled to quell her ire. "Darling," she said, trying to keep her tone even, "I know you're angry. It can be hard for people when they don't understand." With a sniffle, he turned back to face her. Tears streamed freely down his face. The sight threatened to undo her. "Please, Mom, I don't want to go back." The shortened term of endearment struck her. She feared he had aged 5 years in that moment. The knowledge of his own reality wrapped around them both, inescapable. She reached out, running a comforting hand down his arm, his back. What could she do but relent? "All right, you don't have to go tomorrow." He held her gaze for a moment before turning back over. Eleanor felt lost, watching her son's tiny body rise and fall in his agony. After a moment, she said gently, "Don't forget your tea." Then she kissed his temple and left him alone. Thank you.
Okay. All right. It's another one. Rips my heart out. But really well done. I don't have kids either. So I can't attest to, how accurate it is, but it sure got to me. So awesome. We do have a few minutes left. So if everybody wants to jump back on, we have time for a couple of questions. If anyone listening has a question for our panelists, you can put them in the chat or the Q&A. I'll grab them from there. My question is, since the topic of our panel is scenes that broke me and not everyone explained why, my question is, why did this scene break you? And if you have already explained why, the question is the opposite. What kind of scene is your favorite to write? The scenes that you love. So let's start with Julia.
Okay. I like scenes actually with dialogue. I enjoy the interaction between my main characters and trying to bring their personalities out more. And I mean, and that sort of happened in this one. I explained why it was a harder one though, but that's my favorite. I think to write is the dialogue.
Yeah, that's always fun. And you're really good at the banter too, as we noted. You have lots of good one-liners in there.
Oh, thanks.
Joy, how about you?
The reason I picked the scene that I did is because when you write a character, at least what I do is I kind of crawl into their skin and I feel what they feel. And both characters were hurting a lot in that scene that I picked. So that's why I picked the scene that broke me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sam, how about you?
Yeah, I touched a little bit on why I chose, I guess, a scene from Eleanor's perspective because she is a mother and I am not. This particular scene was tough to write because it's just so heartbreaking to me. I would think as really seeing anybody suffer, but especially a mother seeing her child suffer and feeling like there's not a whole lot that she can do about it. That one was tough to write. In terms of scenes I enjoy writing, I really like writing scenes that do feature a little more action. Seen more in my fantasy novels, but in the historical novels, there's usually a climactic scene where there's a bit of a showdown between several characters. I'm getting better at writing those. The blocking I can find difficult to do in terms of who's standing where and who's holding what and all of that. But I do enjoy writing those scenes.
Yeah, awesome. And Kimberly.
I like the scenes that are kind of quiet and bring out something in a character that gets revealed in a way that's really big, but it doesn't seem really dramatic. But then you go, whoa, okay, now I get it, kind of thing. And not a hidden thing. It's not like a hidden twist or anything, but it's just like they're learning something in that moment. And there doesn't have to be any dialogue or, anything going on really so much, but it could actually be in their own head. And I think that's my favorite thing is feeling that come out. And I don't think I'm really good at it in the first draft. Sometimes I'll put a little note next to it saying, do this thing to make it feel like this. And then when I come back to it and I do it right, that's my favorite thing. It's my
Yeah.
favorite.
Yeah, for sure. It's always a good feeling when you nail something like that.
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat from P. Rhapsody O'Brien. Kimberly, does the GCLS Writing Academy have classes on writing difficult scenes?
Yeah, I think most of the first two classes or the two academies are set up to talk about difficult scenes on how to get them, the technical parts and the arts and stuff like that. So yeah, we do. We really do. Mostly sex. That's what people really want to know. How do you write sex? But yeah.
Okay. Well, if you want to know how to write difficult scenes or also how to write sex, you might give the Writing Academy a look. That's very cool. All right. So talking about difficult scenes, as a reader, what kind of scene is most difficult for you to read? I will admit I read a lot of mysteries, and sometimes I'm like so worried about what's going to happen to the protagonist that I go to the end and read the ending before for the end. And I know it ruins it, but I just can't live with the suspense. So, how about you guys? Let's start with Sam. Difficult to read.
Oof. I mean, there are certain topics, perhaps more triggering topics, that I tend to avoid in if I'm going to pick up a book to read. But I think what I struggle to read, even though I love writing it, is the slow burn romance. It, it's almost like it's so well done. Like I can feel it. I'm in the moment with these characters. They're building to that first like love scene between the characters. And the tension, the chemistry is just so good. I'm ready to get there. And so I find myself, trying to remind myself that the payoff is usually going to be worth it. And so that I have to remind myself to enjoy the ride.
Yeah. And we also have a panel at 5 p.m. if you are interested in learning our other authors' perspectives. We have a panel, The Pining and the Payoff, which is all about slow burn. Julia, scenes that you hate to read or the least difficult to read.
Yeah, I'd agree with Sam a bit on the slow burn, but also the moment of breakup in those books that have that where um, it's difficult to figure out how the hell they're ever going to get back together.
Mm.
So I think those probably are the ones that I actually enjoy too, but just when they really have a difficult situation and you don't see how it's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something oddly satisfying about an author, like, pulling those negative emotions from you. That's also fun. Joy, how about you? Difficult scenes to read.
I love a slow burn, unlike those two. I hate it when we get to the conflict in a romance,
Mm.
especially if it's because of a lack of communication.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, why can't they just get along? Come on. I know we'll have a happy ending, but it's difficult sometimes to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And Kim.
Oh my gosh, all of those. Yeah, all of those. But I think the hardest one for me to read is when the characters are just mean to each other.
Mm.
Like when they, like, especially during the, right before you get to the climax, you're in the conflict and they just start saying mean and nasty things to each other. I'm like, how can they ever get past that? Even if you explain why you did it, it'd be like, why did you do it? I mean, so yeah, those are the ones I have a hard time with. But usually those are the ones with the biggest, bang at the, and then you go, oh, okay, I get it. But reading it, oh my God, it just
Yeah.
kills me.
Yeah, I struggle with that too. I'm like, how is that thought even in your head to have said it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a tough one. All right, we are right on time to end, unfortunately. I would like to thank all our lovely panelists. They were fabulous readings. If you would like to check out their novels, all the links are in the chat. And please join us in just about 10 minutes for our next panel, Are Tropes Making Romance Predictable? So we'll see you all there. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sandy.
Thank you.
Thank you.